Okay, so today I want to look into the United Kingdom political system a little bit. And just more compare and contrast. We've looked at the U.S. and the Canadian system. You could say that these systems were built off what the UK has done. So let's see their system. Here we go.
This is London, the capital of the United Kingdom of Great Britain, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. At one time, much of the world was ruled from here. The British Empire stretched from colonies in America, sultanates in India, isles in the Caribbean, and desert kingdoms in Africa. For such a small place, it's only a bit larger than Greece, and even today has less than 65 million people. Its influence on the world.
This is kind of an older one, right? 5 years ago? I thought UK had a lot more people. What's the population of the United Kingdom? Okay, as of the most recent official provisional estimates from the UK's Office for National Statistics, the population was just under 70 million. Okay.
Has been extraordinary. Shakespeare, the Industrial Revolution, the English language, even the Beatles, all hail from the United Kingdom. The UK has also had and still has a remarkable impact on the democratic world. We see the origins of human rights law in the Magna Carta signed in the year 1215. And the UK's legislature is called the mother of all parliaments because of its role as a model for new democracy.
What's the Magna Carta? What's the Magna Carta? I'm just gonna get the right. The Magna Carta is one of the most famous and influential documents in Western legal and political history. It is a royal charter of rights originally sealed by King John of England on June 15th, 1215 at Runmedi. Okay. Key provisions and enduring clauses. Most of the original 63 clauses dealt with specific medieval feudal customs and have since been repealed. However, a few principles proved foundational. Clause 1 guaranteed the freedom of the English Church, still partially enforced today. Clause 39 and 40, often combined in later version as Clause 29 of the 1297 reissue. No free man shall be seized or imprisoned or stripped of his rights or possession or outlawed or exiled or deprived of his standing any other way, nor will we proceed with force against him or send others to do so, except by the lawful judgment of his equals or by the law of the land. To no one will we sell, to no one deny or delay right of justice. These established ideas of due process, trial by peers, protection against arbitrary imprisonment or punishment. Back in the 1200s, huh? Okay. Like a conclusion.
Over the past 200 years. In world politics, the UK is a permanent member of the United Nations Security.
Like, I like how I see this video is old, and it's 5 years old. I don't see that. The video is 5 years old, and I consider it old. And then back in the 1200s, they were making the Magna Carta. Like, that is the society we live in we live in has been built upon so much. All right, let's get back to
Security
it.
Council, a leading member of the European Union, and the United States' closest ally. There's no question that knowing this England, as Shakespeare called it, is to go a long way towards understanding democracy itself. I'm Bob Beatty, and in this program we will explore the British political system to better know and understand the keys and nuances of a parliament that in some form or other has influenced every single democracy in the world.
This video has to be older, and it was only posted 5 years. These are or were current MPs. Assume we're gonna see them in the video. Members of Parliament.
In the next hour, we'll focus on the British parliamentary system. What is the British Parliament? What does an individual member of the House of Commons, or MP, do?
House of Commons, so we use the same terminology. Canada as they members of Parliament, House of Commons.
And what is up with the House of Lords?
We have the Senate, they have the House of Lords.
We hope to answer those questions and more as we cross the Thames River.
Is the House of Lords? I remember seeing something where they had like a giant golden mace of some kind. And I assume that's the House of Lords.
The Palace of
I guess we're
Westminster.
gonna get to see.
For this program, the British Parliament.
The British parliamentary system is essentially a parliamentary rather than presidential system. We have 659 MPs. Each one of them has their own constituency.
So then, the number of MPs, like the members of Parliament, is based off population. We have like 300 and something. We have a lower population, 40 million. That makes sense.
And the aim of Parliament is essentially, of course, to run the country. However, what really matters in Parliament is that members of the government, Tony Blair, for example, is also an MP, so are most of the major ministers. They're all MPs, and therefore, of course, we don't have separation of powers in the sense that you would have in the United States. Control of the parliamentary timetable is very much the responsibility of government. And in fact, most of the work of Parliament, although sometimes it seems very exciting when we have things like Prime Minister's Question Time, when the parties appear to be fighting it out across the floor of the House of Commons, most of what goes on in Parliament is relatively routine.
So, well, first of all, actually, incidentally, sorry. First of all, I should welcome the Right Honourable Gentleman to his new position. And to say how delighted I am that someone written off under the last Conservative government is now given the chance to rehabilitate himself under Labour.
Well, I'm very grateful to the Prime Minister for his warm words of welcome, but I'm afraid he really didn't answer the question. Let me give him the answer. Let me give him the answer.
I love the
It changed a whole lot, has it?
job I'm doing. I mean, it's a wonderful place to be here. I mean, I got here in my mid-50s, rather later in life than most MPs, and it's a great liberating position to be here, to know that instead of shouting at the television, you can face with the Prime Minister and tell him where he's gone wrong, and you can have a little bit of influence on how the world is run, and particularly how Britain is run. So it is, I mean, it's a wonderful job for anyone to be in. I might do it for nothing. I mean, if I need money, I'd pay to do it, but they actually pay you as well, which is extraordinary. And I believe it's probably the most satisfying job that I could do. And unless you can be a great surgeon or someone else, where you can save life or make a great difference and make some major scientific discoveries. If you're a person of average ability, I believe you can have a very satisfying life in the world of politics, as long as you set out what your horizons and your aims are.
You divide your role up really, I think, into three areas. The first is representing your constituency, and that's a very intimate relationship here. I represent 60,000 adults, 60,000 voters. Most of them feel they have a claim on my time. They can come and see me if they want to book in and see me at a surgery with a personal problem. Then they can usually do that within a week or two. And I'm in the district, the constituency, every weekend, and I'm expected to be there and be involved in their events. So it's a very intimate relationship. And so I have a sort of primary duty to take up their personal problems. So if they can't, they've got a problem with their welfare benefits, or they've got a problem with anything that's going through Parliament at the moment, they bring it to me. The second role is your role in Parliament, where as an opposition member, what you're seeking to do is to be a good legislator. It's a kind of slightly more confused role here because we've got the executive in Parliament, so you're both trying to be a legislator and hold the executive to account at the same time, and we've got ministers coming before us.
So, the executive branch have... Where's that? I have a diagram. Okay, give me a little bit of trouble. Here we go. So the executive branch. So the legislature is your House of Commons with the MP. Canada, we have a Senate, they have the House of Lords. They put forward the executive branch. Prime Minister. The Prime Minister picks the cabinet. That's all part of the executive. He's talking about their job is to hold the executive to account.
That we can actually question. So a lot of your time is about grilling the executive. There's that parliamentary role. And then the third role is your party role. And the party role will vary from individual to individual. I've taken on a substantial responsibility as a spokesperson on information technology. So a lot of my time is taken up creating policy for my party on information technology, meeting people in the industry.
So an MP has to break their time up between being in the legislature, holding the executive to account, being in their own district where they were elected to represent, and then there's also party role stuff.
And really sort of pushing the cause to show that my party is doing well in information technology.
Primarily, it is to represent the views of the constituents of Beckenham in the House of Commons and to take an active part in the legislative process. There is, however, a lot of pressure, and this is actually a fundamental constitutional change, where an MP is seen to be doing an awful lot of social work. And the social work aspect is sorting out constituents' problems that frankly should have been sorted out by the organisations involved long before they get to the level of a Member of Parliament.
I mean, my main job as MP is to represent this area and the people who live in the area. So first and foremost, I take the constituency casework and the dealings that I have with individual constituents as my top priority. Sometimes that means acting almost as a social worker. Sometimes it involves acting as an advocate, often with bureaucracies or agencies that don't give unless they're pushed hard enough. But, and this is the special role an MP can play, often it involves picking up an individual local problem and pursuing it nationally, either with ministers, civil servants or national agencies. And sometimes using public exposure in Parliament as a way of reinforcing pressure. So it's picking up casework, number one. And last year I dealt with just over...
I just remembered I haven't updated what I'm actually talking about. Different streaming sites, news and political content was the last thing I... Right, I think I'm in all the right categories. Get back to
over 1,500 individual cases, and that's out of a total population in the constituency of about 60,000.
There are a number. I've done over 10 commandments on the party, which I can't remember them all. But I think the most important one as an MP, I mean, certainly to support my party is there, but to enlarge its horizons, to convey messages in a way that's coloured with humour and with a lightness of touch, we hope, so it becomes palatable, so to communicate effectively. But I think the most important of my 10 commandments is that we should neglect the rich, the obsessed, and the tabloid press, and seek out the silent voices. The people that we should be serving are those who don't beat a path to our doors. They're the ones who are not articulate and not well-heeled and not advantaged. And if we do that successfully, we serve our people well as their representatives.
I mean, what went wrong? This sounds great. Aren't they having a lot of political issues in the UK right now? I guess I'm not too familiar with the system, but everything I hear... Well, I mean, I guess we'll get into that. Foundation sounds strong. What we copied for ours, after all.
Every MP, or Member of Parliament, takes on a number of roles as a member of the House of Commons. The first is the legislative and scrutiny role, in which MPs shape, debate, and scrutinize legislation. MPs also have to represent their constituency, a role which is taking more and more of their time and has made some, such as Jackie Late, say that she sometimes feels like more of a social worker than an MP. Part of this role is scheduling what are called advice surgeries. These are appointments MPs have with constituents to hear their problems and concerns that constituents often expect MPs to take back to London and do something about.
And do you get out when there's not an election and still meet people? Or,
I do. I do my fixed advice surgeries in the office and at the town hall, but I also do street surgeries. So I'll leaflet 200 houses, for instance, and if they want to see me, they'll put it up in the window and I'll call and see them. So what I find is that if you go to people like that, then you come across problems and they contact you in a way that makes it better. They'll come to me if I go to them.
My godmother was an MP, coincidentally, in a neighbouring constituency, and she used to be able in the 60s to reply to all of her constituents' letters by hand. I now have 2 staff, and it's been an exponential increase, and in fact it has worsened since 1997 because because an awful lot of the Labour members who came from a social work, public sector background, felt that their job as an MP was much more to be a social worker. And so a lot of the changes that have taken place in the House.
Well, even more than this, like nowadays, it's so easy to just send an email to your MP to contact them however they want to be contacted. That like they need like staff in order to be able to go through everything.
House of Commons has been to facilitate the social work role rather than the legislative and scrutiny role.
We're going to do a shopping.
So you're doing something wrong somewhere?
Well, we used to sell for that.
Yeah, no.
Margaret Thatcher, this bandit, South Yorkshire County Council. With 10p, did it?
Are you waiting for him?
Yeah.
He's to be 10p.
Wait till he's ready.
I'm learning about the UK political system, and they've mentioned a lot about the social role of MPs. Is this something that's still widely practiced? Yes, the social role of UK MPs, often called constitutional casework, surgeries, or the constitutional service side of the job, is very much still widely practiced and remains a central, time-consuming part of what most MPs do today. This aspect of the role involves MPs and their staff helping individual constitute personal problems, such as issues with benefits, pensions, immigration, NHS, housing, disputes with the government department. MPs also hold regular surgeries, advice sessions in person or online, attend community events, visit local organizations, act as advocates to meet in constant democratic system. Okay.
I'm just having a fun. It'll come back again. Let's go to shopping.
Another role for many MPs is the party role. Along with his other duties, John Healey served as the Personal Private Secretary, or PPS, for Gordon Brown, Secretary of the Exchequer in the Blair government.
Well, the first characteristic of the week when Westminster's sitting is that it's divided between home here and the constituency, and normally about 4 days away down in London at Westminster. So what I make a point of doing is dropping our 6-year-old son off at school first thing on a Monday morning, and I stick to that come what may, and then normally I go to the train station straight down to London. What I like to try and do is clear as much as I can when I'm down there, so I have a ridiculously long working day down there. I take the view that if I'm in London, I'm in the Commons, I may as well be working. So Monday to Thursday, I'm in London. I do whatever I can to get home again on Thursday night. I don't care if it's 2 in the morning. If I can do that, I'm there when he wakes up in the morning on Friday, and again I take him to school on a Friday. So Monday to Thursday in the Commons, I would try and do a couple of hours casework and correspondence before about 9 o'clock in the morning. Most of my morning would be tied up with meetings at the Treasury, sometimes without Gordon Brown. That's part of my job as PPS. The afternoon, there may be duties in the Commons, committees, or in the Chamber. Part of my job as parliamentary aide to Gordon Brown is to be his eyes and ears in Westminster. So I have to be around and I have to be available for MPs that can't get to Gordon but get to Gordon through me. And so I normally will get back to my desk again at about 10 p.m. and then often 3 or 4 hours clearing what I haven't been able to do during the day, mixture of casework, bit of research, work on the different issues I'm following, and and then back again in the morning. So that's Monday to Thursday. And then Friday's a day devoted to the constituency. Work in the office here, picking up casework, sometimes surgeries, advice surgeries, often visits, local groups, employers.
I wonder why they call it surgery. Going out and essentially working with the constituents.
Things like that. Saturdays would tend to be advice surgery in the morning, and then I normally try and stop at that point, so that Saturday afternoon and Sunday is there for the family.
It sounds like he works hard.
Dealing with a gentleman who's got some interesting views. I'll just give you background. Quite often people have difficulty with the health service because of waiting times and waiting lists. And his particular case, he'd been waiting for quite a long time for this operation, a very serious operation too, and it had not come through. So I worked with his doctor, his normal doctor, to see if we could get it brought forward. And eventually we did. Now, it shouldn't work like that. I mean, it shouldn't be a letter from an MP that says, come on, you know, this ought to happen. Yeah. But in that particular case, we were able to just make sure that all the medical evidence was put forward, and eventually they did bring it forward. And it was.
And you supply a letter and a phone call, and just sort of.
And chase. And Nikki and my colleagues in the office also then do an automatic follow-up. If we haven't had a response after a certain period, automatically follow up and see what's going on.
Wow.
All right.
Unlike in the United States House and Senate, members of the British House of Commons are not given a large office staff and have to do much of their casework, speechwriting, and research on their own.
We weren't given office staff?
Unlike in the United States House and Senate, members of the British House of Commons are not given a large office staff and have to do much of their casework, speechwriting, and research on their own.
Yeah, because we heard the one MP had 2 staff workers. I wonder how many staff workers a House of Representative has in the US.
I've got.
What are they called in the US again? On average, how many staff does a member of the House of Representatives have? Like this is old, so I assume as they'll have more today, just because of how easy it is to contact them. On average, a member of the U.S. House of Representatives have about 15 staff members in their personal office. This figures come from Congressional Research Service. Roughly 15.15, so about 15. Typical, a split of around 8 to 9 in Washington, D.C. office and 6 to 7 in district offices. Okay. Legal limits. House rules allow up to 18 permanent employees, plus up to 4 additional staff, can be part-time, temporary, or shared. Most offices do not max out the full allowance due to budget constraints from the member's representational allowance. Okay. In Canada, how many staff does the average MP have? See what it's like in Canada. Roughly 6 to 8 staff members across their Ottawa, Parliamentary Hill, constituency offices combined. With some variation depending on the size and needs of the riding. One detailed survey of MP offices found an average closer to 5 staff, though the typical range was 1 to 11 employees. Okay.
3 staff, then we have a sum of £70,000 for staff now, which is very generous compared to what we had in the past. So we can employ 2.5, 3 people at good salaries, at adequate salaries to survive in.
I want to know what their average is today too. How many employees does the average MP in the UK have today? We have 15 in the US, 6 to 8 Canada, UK roughly 4 to 5 staff funded through the Independent Parliamentary Standards Authority. So it's gone up a little bit from when this is taken.
In London, and I depend on them greatly. They're 3 talented, resourceful people who are good researchers, who can write reports and give me a hard time, and will all tell me when I'm wrong, and which is the best thing to look for in staff. Staff who will tell you off and tell you when you're being lazy or foolish or underachieving.
I get an allowance each year. It's a set pot of money. It is about £50,000. From that I have to employ staff, I have to rent my office, I have to buy stationery, I have to cover the cost of my mobile phone or pager. So it has to cover the whole lot. That allows me to employ 1 full-time member of staff here in the constituency and 1 part-time member of staff to support me down in Westminster, and that's my total staffing. That probably means I do a lot more hands-on individual casework than your average US politician. It also means I probably do a lot more about research, speech writing, writing of articles for the media, all that sort of additional stuff. I tend to do a lot of. I like doing it, but I don't have the staff to support me.
I mean, we have a lot smaller
The numbers have
constituency
gone up,
than
right?
American
4 to 5 now.
Of course, there are about 70,000 people on my patch, which is enough to look after. But I think we also have the support of a library staff. It's very good, and other staff here. If we're going to do a bill, we rely on those to take us through the system and to actually draft the bill. So we're okay, and things are so much better than they were, when I came here 20 years ago. We are much better off.
And it's getting better. Right? They have more staff now. I imagine that makes their workloads lighter. How is the number of MPs in the House of Commons calculated in Canada and the UK? He said 70,000 people. Right. Is that average or? Okay. Let's see. United Kingdom, the total number of MPs in the House of Commons is fixed by law at 650. Each MP represents a single member parliamentary constituency, also called a seat, elected via first past the post. The number is not calculated based on population growth or census data in a formulaic way that changes the total. Instead, it is statutory set currently under the Parliamentary Constitution Act of 2020, which restored and locked in 650 after earlier attempts to reduce it. Okay, we're not going to go too much. The UK is divided into 4 parts: England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and seats are allocated between them proportionally based on the registered parliamentary electorate, not total population. Registered parliamentary electors. So how many people can vote, essentially? Okay, let's go down to Canada. Chief Electoral Officer applies this formula using the latest provincial population estimates from Statistics Canada. calculate the electoral quotient. This is the base average population per seat. Starts from the previous quotient and is adjusted upward by the average provincial population growth rate over the last 10 years. For the latest distribution, it was 121,000, almost 122,000 people. So that's the average number of people that a member of parliament represents. So key differences: UK is fixed at 650. Canada, variable total that grows with population. You have the formula. See what that is. Registered parliamentary electorate. Depth refers to the total number of people officially listed on the electoral registry who are eligible and registered to vote. So they do it based off the people registered to vote in UK parliamentary elections. The whole not total population kind of stood out to me there. Right, let's continue.
But I mean, the work increases to fill the available time. And you can either, I mean, you can go off and live in America if you wanted to as an MP. They still pay your wages. It doesn't make any difference. Or you can work around the clock and still go around with your head in a cloud of guilt because you feel you've neglected this or you haven't done as much for that constituent as possible. But I believe it's reasonable at the moment compared to most parliaments, most regional parliaments. We're better paid and we have better allowances than ever before, and they've increased by a great amount in the last 10 years.
And they keep increasing.
There's a great deal of party discipline in the House of Commons. Each of the political parties expects its members to follow the party line, and most of them do. They follow the party line not necessarily because they're bullied or cajoled into taking decisions which they fundamentally disagree with. There's what one writer has called a culture of obedience, whereby MPs who've always supported a particular party, once obviously they're in Parliament, will continue to do so. And certainly, okay, there are mechanisms whereby party discipline is ensured, and sometimes threats or even bribes are offered in the form of jobs and whatever to individual members. They just generally do follow the party line. Also, it's sometimes very difficult to hide because the voting system in the House of Commons is in no way electronic. Each member of Parliament it is clear who he or she what he or she is voting for, simply because they pass through a particular lobby, and by passing through the lobby they're then counted and their votes are registered. So it does make life difficult for those who, shall we say, wish to express opinions that are in opposition to the party line.
I wonder if that's still how they do it. Because I've seen, at least in the United States, in some places, they have like electronic voting systems that they use. In the Canadian House of Commons, can you hide your vote on a bill? Or is everything still public? No. The Canadian House of Commons, an MP cannot hide their individual vote on a bill set to casting a truly secret anonymous ballot. Anonymous, that's the how voting works on bills. Voting on legislation. Second reading, report stage. Third reading generally follows these methods. Voice vote. The speaker asks all those in favor and all those opposed. Members shout out yay or nay. The speaker declares the result based on what? Are you serious? Okay, let's read this again. Voice vote, the most common for routine or uncontroversial matters. The speaker asks all those in favor and all those opposed. Members shout out yay or nay. The speaker declares the result based on volume. No individual names or votes are recorded. This is the closest thing to hiding a vote, as there is no public record of who says what. Okay, so this has to be used on things that are like one-sided, right? Like there's no, it says uncontroversial matters, so important matters aren't decided with a voice vote, right? Because like it just comes down to who can yell louder. It doesn't seem like a good system. Okay. On division, increasingly common. If there is no objection or parties agree, a bill or motion can pass on division. This means the House accepts the outcome without anyone having to stand or rise or record a formal vote. It signals that some members disagree. They are not forced to count. No individual votes are registered, effectively allowing the bill to pass without public accountability for specific MPs. Increasingly common. That's not good. Okay. Key points on hiding votes. There is no secret ballot for votes or bills or most motions in the House. Unlike electors for speaker or certain internal House positions, where secret ballots are explicitly allowed. MPs can effectively avoid having their vote publicly recorded by not requesting or forcing a recorded division, allowing the bill to pass on division, simply not showing up or remaining seated during a recording division. Okay. What is the voice vote and how does it work? Is it used for important matters? Here. A voice vote. It is the simplest and quickest method used in Westminster-style Parliament, including both the Canadian House of Commons and the UK House of Commons, so it's used in both places, to decide on a motion, amendment, or bill after debate ends. How a voice vote works. Putting the question. Okay, collecting the voices. Speaker first asks those in favor, say yes. And those opposed, say nay. Speaker's judgment. The speaker listens to the volume and intensity of shouts and declares their opinion. If no one challenges this, the speaker finalizes. Okay. So if there's a controversial matter, or if there's some kind of real split, I imagine it's challenged. This is just a fast way of passing, because so many bills, they go through like a first reading, second reading, third reading, and so a lot of times they're passed through quickly. I remember seeing a video of, I think it was a state government in the US, and they had little buttons that they would click. I mean, at least what I was watching was people clicking other people's buttons. Yeah. consent is heard, but no one wants a full count. So can say okay. If dissent is heard, but no one wants a full count, MPs can simply say on division. The speaker then declares the motion carried or defeated on division. This records that there was opposition, but no individual votes are tallied or published. Common way to note disagreement without forcing a recorded vote. If 5 or more MPs rise or demand it, speakers order a recorded division. Bells ring to summon MPs, and each member's name and vote, yea or nay, is officially recorded and published. If 5 or more MPs rise, that's a small number. So you pretty much have to have like a consensus to get through on a voice vote. In the UK, the process is similar, but any MP can force a division. Formal vote. Yay, no lobbies. By continuing to shout or challenge the speaker's call. There's also a convention of vote follows voice. Your shouted preference should generally match how you vote. It goes to division. That makes sense. So, is the voice vote used for important matters? Yes, routinely, but with important caveats. Routine or uncontroversial business. Voice votes are the default and very common. They effectively handle many procedures, minor amendments, or bills where broad agreements exist or parties do not want to force a public showdown. Important or contagious matters. Voice votes are still the starting point for almost everything, including second readings, report stage, and third readings of major bills. I mean, if 5 people standing up is all it takes to force like an official voting process of like, how many members of parliament do we have again? How many members of parliament are in Canada's House of Commons? I love how I can like stutter and it still gets it all right. Beautiful. 343. 5 have to stand up to get like an official counting of the vote. Done. All right.
Yes, oh yeah, I think yes. I think it's compared to most legislatures throughout the world that MPs vote for their own parties, take it as a matter of loyalty. There's some justification for it because we were elected as representatives of what Labour stands for, or what Conservatives stand for, or what Plaid Cymru stands for, rather than for our own personalities, and because we're wonderful human beings. I think we accept that. People don't vote for persons, they vote for parties. So there is a general understanding that the right thing is to support what the Labour Party supports. Well, I think I've voted against my party in this Parliament about 20 or 30 times, and there are issues in which the party has been, I believe, profoundly wrong. And I'd have the support of my local party. My constituency would be backing me on that. The principal one has been on the Iraq War, where I believe we were deeply and seriously wrong. And we took a decision on an entirely false basis, on the belief that there was weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, which clearly there weren't. And we sent British soldiers in to kill and be killed on documents that were forgeries and falsehoods.
So are there some votes in which the party says we really need everybody to vote for this one? Are there other votes where they say do whatever you want?
Yes, they are. There are votes, but we have a system of whipping 1 line and 3 line whips. 1 line whip, you can virtually not be here, and you really don't have to vote for the party, don't be worried about it. But when they impose a 3 line because they want to know if you're opposing it. They will try to persuade you otherwise if you state what your views are. And on the Iraq War, there was a huge amount of pressure put on all MPs in
What year was the Iraq War? What year was the Iraq War? Because there's clearly a video happening after that. Let's just get a time. Probably have to be after 7. Talking like past.
As a group and individually, in order to persuade people to support the government line. But I had 140 MPs who didn't support the government, which is the biggest revolt there's ever been, I think, in history, certainly for a very long time. That such a large number of MPs, in spite of the pressure put on, which including saying, well, we're going to have a new government, we're going to resign, we're going to, they went nuclear on it with the threats to people. But in spite of that, people felt so strongly that a large number voted against. And of those who voted for the government, many of those are unhappy now because they felt they were deceived by the government whips by presenting a case that's now collapsed.
You're expected to vote for the party on any issue that is regarded as an issue of party policy. And the theory and the philosophy behind that is that you are elected as a Conservative Member of Parliament, you therefore subscribe to the party policy, therefore unquestioningly you should be supportive of the policy. Now, there are times when we have what's called private members' issues, which tend to be matters of conscience, and then the party will decide that there will not be a 3 or a 2-line whip, but there will be what's called a free vote, and you can vote according to your conscience.
Whatever I do as an individual MP, I'm under no real illusions that people in this area voted for me because I was the Labour candidate. Now, I like to think that some of them will vote for me in this election because of what I've also been doing as John Healey, the Labour MP. But essentially, they voted for a Labour MP to be part of a Labour government to produce a Labour programme. Now, I think, therefore, that it's quite a serious step.
This is one of the... he's basically explaining why crossing the aisle thing we see in Canada feels like there's something wrong. Because you vote someone in, and the vast majority of people are voting for that person because they're a part of that party. And allowing that person to change party without any kind of like revote, it just there's something undemocratic there.
Actively to oppose the sort of legislative programme that the government wants to bring in. My job, I think, is to steer and influence it where I can at an early stage, rather than outright vote against the Labour government. I wouldn't rule it out, and there have been a couple of issues where I've been faced with a really pretty difficult decision, unhappy with what we've been planning to do, and having to take a judgment at that point. But the play of the parties, and if you like, the role that the party plays within Parliament is strong.
A key aspect in Parliament is getting your party to vote together, which is the job of the party whips. James Arbuthnot served as the opposition whip for the Conservative Party.
There is more party discipline in Great Britain. There is much less. I don't know whether pork barreling is the proper expression, but there is less of that. Although most things that come to the United States come to the United Kingdom 10 years later. So maybe we'll find the whipping system breaks down in the United Kingdom. The opposition chief whip has a different job in opposition. The government chief whip has a job which is essentially to get the government business through. And that involves using the right arguments, the right persuasive methods on government MPs in order to achieve the business. the opposition chief whip has.
So MPs are not forced to vote along party lines, but they're encouraged to. MPs in Canada are not forced to vote along party lines. What is encouraging them to? I mean, like, they're part of a party. They got elected on a party platform. That's why they have to vote that way. What is the whip in the House of Commons? The position. Let's just see what it gives me. What did it find? In the Canadian House of Commons, MPs are not legally forced to vote along party lines. There is no law requiring it, and they can technically vote however they wish or abstain. However, party discipline is very strong in practice, and most MPs vote with their party on the vast majority of bills in motion, with rare exceptions as designated free votes, such as certain moral or conscious issues like abortion or capital punishment. What encourages MPs to vote along party lines? Career advancement and rewards, re-election and nomination risks, team and electoral success. Okay, yeah, basically. Okay, what is the whip in the House of Commons? The party whip, or chief whip, is a senior MP appointed by their party leader to act as the enforcer and manager of party discipline within the caucus. Key responsibility of the whip includes ensuring enough party members are present in the House or at committees for votes, communicating the party's voting instructions to MPs, and reporting back on the mood or concerns of the caucus. Signing offices.
A much more subtle job, in a sense, which is to keep the morale of the opposition party reasonably good, and to keep them together, to keep them working together for a common goal, so that they, having been, by definition, defeated at the previous election, they've got to improve their showing and their performance for the next election. So keep everyone as properly occupied as possible, giving them proper jobs, making sure that the work is handed to the people with the ability to do it, making sure the allocation therefore of responsibilities is right. So it's a morale job rather than a defeat the government job. At least in the present climate it is. If the government's majority were smaller, it would change, and it might be that then we would have a real opportunity to take the government by surprise and defeat them in a vote. We very nearly did, actually, even with a majority of 170 against us. We did get within 24 votes of beating this Labour Party during the last Parliament. But sadly, the Liberal Democrats were not with us, and so we didn't quite make it.
Well, originally, of course, the Chief Whip literally had the job of getting everybody into the same lobby to vote in Parliament. And you've, I think, adopted in the States the same name, though people probably wouldn't any longer recognise its origin. It goes back to hunting, in fact, fox hunting, where you have a whipper in who makes sure that the hounds go in the right direction. These days, in my party in particular, it's much more of a liaison and communication role. I have to try and make sure that my colleagues know what business is coming through in the House of Commons, know who's going to speak in a debate, take part in a discussion going on to committee, and that the team works. If you like, I'm the team manager. I think it's much more comparable these days to the team manager in the sporting field than it is to anybody in the hunting field.
Probably there are.
Okay, so I'm gonna split this in half and watch the other half tomorrow.